day 26, and we have reports of intense fighting right now in Gaza City as we speak. Before we go through today's movements, let me explain what happened in the last 48 to 72 hours. The IDF went to stage 1, which was enter into Gaza. Stage 2, create a buffer zone 2 to 3 miles inside Gaza, clear it from tunnels and mines and IEDs. They've done that. Then they've created a staging area in that buffer zone. They moved a little bit more inwards as more forces were moving into this staging area. Right now, we're at stage 3. They cut off the north from the south by taking over the highway, Salahadin Highway, that basically cuts through Gaza. And they're moving from the north and the east, essentially cutting off the south from the north and moving in a scissor movement, capturing the center of Gaza, where the main perimeter of defense is for the Hamas. This is the hard shell I was talking about, and that hard shell starts with the neighborhood called Hizbalah. Now, Hizbalah got bombed into smithereens yesterday, and they've managed to kill hundreds of Hamas terrorists, including one which was one of the leaders of the October 7th raid, one of the ground leaders. Now, this guy and his team are all dead, but the IDF took heavy casualties. Even though they killed hundreds of Hamas terrorists, we have 14 casualties on the IDF side, but the IDF manages to take out Hizbalah, take out the headquarters with the assistance of the Air Force and the Navy, and secure that neighborhood, essentially penetrating the hard shell, the hard defenses before they go for the center of Gaza. The reason we're seeing so much destruction on the civilian side, on the infrastructure side, including Hizbalah, if you look at the footage, you can see the size of this crater in the middle of the neighborhood. Why? Well, that is because Hamas literally intertwines their headquarters, their weaponry, all the warehouses, the tunnels inside neighborhoods. They literally have it inside apartment blocks. Why? Inside schools. Why? Inside hospitals. Why? For that purpose exactly. When they get hit, they know that they can use this and leverage this for PR. Now, there's a lot of civilians who died yesterday in Hizbalah. That's certain. But the IDF is operating based on international laws. They're operating with the assistance of legal counsel. They're not doing anything illegal. When you have combatants intertwined into civilian areas, it's perfectly legal to attack those areas, especially since the IDF is going the extra mile and letting people know they need to evacuate days in advance. So whoever stayed in those neighborhoods either chose to do so, either combatant, or was forced by Hamas to stay there as hostages. Now, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing that civilians die, but the IDF can't do nothing about it. They have to eliminate Hamas. They're seeing Hamas now for the first time in history as an existential threat to Israel. They will not stop and they will not back down until Hamas is destroyed. There's no ceasefire, there's no peace talks, and there's no way for them to say, well, we're not going to hit that building even though they have hundreds of Hamas combatants in there because it's a residential building. None of this is happening. All the old rules are out the window. The IDF is working in accordance with international law, but it's not going to stop before Hamas is dead and the gloves are literally off. Now, Hizbalah is saying that they have a huge surprise for Israel coming this Friday. They haven't said what, and Hizbalah has been known to talk the talk, but not really walk the walk. In fact, Hamas was blaming Hizbalah for betrayal over the past few days, saying, hey, Hizbalah, you promised us you're going to help us, but you're doing nothing but talking and shooting a few rockets into the north of Israel once a day just to show your support, but you're not really helping. You're betraying us, you're abandoning us. So now people are thinking maybe Hizbalah announces war on Israel. Now, I don't know, that's a possibility, but if that happens, it tells you that the Iranians are seeing this as their final hurrah moment. They're seeing this as the big time war they've been preparing for, and this is it. Now, the fact of the matter is nobody knows if Hizbalah joins or doesn't join the fight. But if they do choose to join, the impact on Lebanon will be complete destruction. The impact of Hizbalah will be, yes, they will cause a lot of damage to Israel, lots of infrastructure damage, lots of civilian death, but Hizbalah will be destroyed from the air by the Israeli Air Force, by the US Navy. It will be taken out. So this is a suicide mission for Hizbalah. If they choose to join, it's not their decision. It's a decision of the Iranians. And if the Iranians pull that lever, they're basically saying we're going to sacrifice Hamas and Hezbollah because we're thinking that this is it. Now, what do they think about this conflict? What do they think about this war? Are the Iranians certain that this is the big hurrah moment for that? I don't know. We're going to find out Friday. Now, Yemen also declares war on Israel, which sounds more than it really is because, look, Yemen is very similar to Lebanon. It's not really a country anymore. It's been hijacked because of its malfunction and complete disarray by an organization that is fully sponsored by Iran. Sounds familiar from Hizbollah and Iran. So the Houthi rebels, the Houthis are essentially a proxy of Iran. They're controlling the Yemenites, they're controlling Yemen, and they're basically saying, oh, we're going to go to war with Israel. What does this really mean? They can't send any ground troops. They're just too far. They can fire a few missiles that will be shot down by the Israeli aerial defense. And they know Israel isn't going to go to war with Yemen. So this is just, a huge storm in a teacup. It's not a huge deal. Now, the Rafah crossing with Egypt is actually opening up for the first time since this whole thing started. Now, the Egyptians said we're not going to be part of taking any refugees on our territory. And they actually said, look, we're going to basically sacrifice millions of lives of our soldiers to go to war with Israel if they try to put refugees on Egyptian soil. They did open Rafah crossing today, and they said, look, we're only opening it for dual nationals out of Gaza that want out and injured people that go to hospitals in Egypt for treatment, and they will be brought back to Gaza. That happens along with Israel supplying aid or allowing aid to come in through Rafah crossing from Egypt to Gaza, now on a continuous basis, which means food, medicine, water, not gasoline though. The question what Egypt is doing here is very interesting because they're playing a very interesting game. Now, Egypt can definitely handle 1 million of refugees in the Sinai Peninsula. It's massive and it's mainly unpopulated. But the Egyptians are either going for something that's a negotiation tactic, saying, we'll never do this, so they amp up the price the United States will have to pay for this because they'll have to pay them off to take all these refugees. Or Sisi, who is a pragmatist secular leader, is legitimately terrified from putting 1 million Islamic extremists on its soil, creating a new terror organization that's going to cause havoc in Egypt, going to basically combine with the Muslim Brotherhood, which is his sworn enemy, and potentially attack Israel from Sinai Peninsula, causing potentially a war with Israel. So it's either Egypt is genuinely terrified from taking these refugees, or they just want to amp up the price. We'll find out soon enough. Now, I'm going to put on the screen a map of Gaza from the year 2000 because I want to address this. And there's a lot of talk of occupation. Israel is occupying Gaza and Gaza is fighting back. Look, guys, I'm not taking sides here, but look at the map. In the year 2000, this is the areas that Israel was basically controlling. These are the green areas, the yellow areas. Everything else was controlled by the Palestinians somewhat, but everything was under Israeli control. All of the green areas and the yellow areas, everything, every single Israeli presence was cleared out. By 2005, the entire Gaza sector, as it was captured in its entirety from the Egyptians, was given back to the Palestinians. Zero Israeli presence of civilians, zero police, zero army. What they've done immediately is overthrow the Palestinian Authority and put the terrorist organization Hamas in charge, which basically then prevented them from getting any access to waters, international waters, or borders, because Israel basically said, look, guys, you're actively running a terror against us, a war against us. You're throwing rockets at us, you're exploding buses, you're tunneling underneath the fence and going inside Israel, causing terror attacks. We're not going to open an airport and a seaport for you because all you're going to do is you're going to smuggle more weapons inside and you're going to bring in weaponry that we don't want to handle. Now, throughout the 17 or 18 years since this existed, the Palestinian Authority was kicked out and Hamas took over Gaza. Hamas and Gaza have never shown to Israel that they want to proceed in a civilian solution kind of direction. They've always were extreme militants. The only time this happened was this year. By October 6th, kind of funny enough, by October 6th, the day before the attacks, Israel has extended record numbers of working visas for Gazans to work in Israel and has started to open up and loosen up the policy with the concept, okay, let's open up slowly, show goodwill, Hamas will eventually turn into a civilian organization. So that was the whole purpose of Israel. But then, what the first thing that Hamas did, the moment Israel started to loosen up a little bit, is basically go out and kill 1,400 civilians and cause havoc in Israel. So that proves that Israelis was right not to give them a seaport and an airport, because it's their land. They spent billions and hundreds of billions of aid money to build a military and tunnels and rockets instead of taking care of their own people. They don't even have a single bomb shelter in that country. But, sorry, Gaza isn't a country, it's an autonomy, whatever the fuck it is. Where's the bomb shelters? Where's the civilian infrastructure? Every single aid money went to Hamas arming itself. Not to mention that the Hamas leader, Khalid Mashal, is now worth $5 billion. He's living in Qatar like an Arab sheik with yachts and Bugattis. I mean, what the hell are we talking about here? Now, let's talk about Russia here for a second, because Russia is a major operator in this story, and it's kind of playing it a little bit cool from the behind the scenes area, but it's not as it seems. So Russia, over the past few days, have hosted Hamas leadership in Moscow. We have a Russian state-sponsored media member go down the Hamas tunnels for a full tour, and we actually have riots, massive riots in Russia in an airport trying to hunt down Israelis and Jews. Make no mistake about it, in Russia, no riots happens without the direction of the Kremlin. So why is Russia causing this mayhem? Why are they supporting Hamas? Why are they kind of stirring the pot here a little bit? Well, it's not that Russia loves Hamas. Russia has its own interest. Number one, they want to push for chaos. The United States is currently the world's policeman, the world's administrator. If they create chaos, they show to everybody that the US can't handle it, which is their ultimate goal, because they want to move to a multipolar world, not a world where the United States calls the shots. Number two, it's a good distraction from the war crimes they're actually carrying out in Ukraine, displacing children, attacking civilians, everything they're blaming Israel for doing. They want the world to look away from Ukraine so they can do that there. Number three, if there's a big mess in the Middle East, oil prices, energy prices, gas prices go up, $120 a barrel, $130 a barrel, Russia makes bank. Number four, more weapon sales. Russia makes a lot of money from selling weaponry. If there's a big mess in the world, more Russian weaponry will be sold, and they'll make more money. So at the end of the day, the Russians are the key operator here, probably as big as Iran. Iran has more of a religious, theological thing here they're playing. Russia is playing a completely cold, calculated bet, but all of them are basically in this to stir the pot. China is not really a player in this, even though they're siding with their axis, but they're not really involved in this conflict. Now, a few words about the Israeli plan. So the Israeli plan is to hit every single Hamas asset to take it down. That's the stated goal. They can't do it without penetrating the outer defense perimeter of Gaza City. That means they have to deal with tunnels, with the anti-tank weaponry, with snipers, with ambushes, with IEDs. And then after they've penetrated the outer perimeter, they can go for the soft middle, which is where the stuff they really want to get at. The problem is that penetration process is going to be very, very, very painful. And you've seen it in the 14 dead. The 14 dead that happened from the IDF side happened even though they killed hundreds of Hamas terrorists because one guy manages to launch an RPG or an anti-tank. Another guy manages to launch another RPG or an anti-tank towards a carrier of troops. Boom, you have 14 dead soldiers in a heartbeat. That's what happens in the residential area, urban warfare, tunnels, in this rubble destruction environment. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a slow process. But I think the IDF is really going for it this time. They won't stop until they actually kill Hamas. Now, I've hosted on my show a former CIA agent who broke down the entire process, where this thing is going. I'm going to put the video right here. Go check it out. We did a 1-hour interview. His name is Brian Cunningham, former CIA, former White House advisor. We'll go check out this interview. If you haven't yet, subscribe right here. I'll see you in the next video.